moving on, we got Nilfgaard. And
The
oh
Mighty
boy,
Empire.
yes,
I'm super excited about some of these.
this card is maybe the most broken card we've had in the game.
So, Saber kind of thinks this card is utterly broken. Now, we then did a little bit of going through the ways that it can get value, and I think it's not as good as he first thought. But I mean, he seems to still think it's pretty good. So maybe I'm wrong.
yeah. So what it does is that it replaces your lead ability with a base copy of the opponent's lead ability. That means that, for instance, in round 1, you could just commit your leader to win uneven. And then in round 2, you can just slow play your Anna Henrietta and take your leader back. So it kind of just lets you go very aggressive early on, and you can just compensate it on to get a leader back. I think the main issue with the card is that there are some leaders that are really bad for you to play. Let's say you get like an Ursine or
Inspired Zeal.
Like there are a few which won't really pay for more than a few points. That happens, then lockdown. Actually, lockdown. That's going to happen. Something pretty interesting to lockdown, right? True. But we'll get to that in a few moments. But you can also get like Arnulf. You can get like Uprising. You can get Double Cross. Right? So there's some really, really strong pulls as well. Because usually you would say that a leader is worth more than a card, and this is just 3 points plus your leader. Plus their leader, of course. So,
but at the same time, a lot of leaders are worth more than a card because they synergize, right? So
yes.
They're not like, for example, a precision strike. Now you're not getting the additional 4 points plus 2.
So it's a 7, right?
Which is good though, because it is damage and stuff. So it's yeah.
Yeah, I still think the card will be really good, but obviously it kind of depends what's meta. If all of these decks that don't give you good value on like that the opponent can't really use the leader ability to anything, then this card won't be as good.
Sure.
But it is in Nilfgaard, you can play it with Assimilate, which means that you will be able to like replay some of their cards to find value from the leader ability somehow. So
synergy with Assimilate will actually be very strong, right? Because like even like for example, Precision Strike, you get the Assimilate off of the thing. And Nilf's another one. Double Cross is great as well. Like there's plenty of things that really synergize pretty heavily with Assimilate.
Yeah. Obviously, everyone will play this card before you play your own leader, because then you just lose your own leader abilities. So make sure you play your own leader first.
Yep.
The next card is also really crazy.
I think this is my favorite of the entire
it's very elegant in some way, right? It's like very highly synergistic, high base. It just gonna feel so good to play.
Oh, another thing that I want to point out about both of these is they both have the aristocrat tag, which is nice, right? 2 more high-end aristocrats to play with Bull, which is pretty nice.
I'm not sure if it's nice from like a wall perspective, but it's nice for the ball player at least.
Yeah, exactly.
So you draw a card and then you move a card from your hand to the bottom of your deck. So it's like a super thin kind of, right? Like you shuffle your hand and then you can put something, just never want to see it again. Seems a little bit random.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't really achieve anything, right? Because it's going to be done in round 3 most of the time. You're rarely going to be playing this before round 3, and at that point, that thin doesn't really achieve anything. I guess it's sort of supposed to help hyper thin. I would assume.
Maybe Joachim. You won't draw into that card again. I mean, like,
I can't see the use of this card. The deploy use.
Yeah, it's
just I can't see the use of the card.
It's just improving the hand quality a little bit, right? And maybe there are some cards that can like manipulate with your top cards. So like maybe you can like check what your top cards are, and you can.
Yeah, it's like almost like an anti-cloggers ability, right?
Kind of right. So I think it's like that ability is not why the card is strong. It's just like a nice thing to have as well.
Yeah, it's not like bad in any way, for sure.
But then what it does is that whenever your opponent plays a unit, give it spying. So if you have enforcers on the board, if you have dames on the board, you will just get 1 point every time the opponent plays a card. And I think you always want to play this card with devotion if you play it. At the end of your turn, seize a random enemy 1 power spying unit. So every time you play spying units from hand, from Brathens or Emissary, Informant, etc., you will just get them back. So instead of like losing 1 point on playing that spy, you're actually gaining 1 point. if you don't have any spies in your hand, you can also try to use damage card to set up 1-point units on the opponent's side of the board. Because remember, everything they play will get spying now. So you can just, like, whatever you damage down to 1, you'll seal it. Like if you somehow manage to damage Visagotha, for instance, and yoink, my engine now. So some really, really strong interactions here.
It also, this card, I haven't actually thought about this before, but it also actually empowers the other spy that doesn't see any play, right? The one that deals 3 damage to 2 adjacent units. In theory, you could damage things down to 1 with that and steal, and then you've got like because it's now playing for +1 anyway, right? So it empowers that, and it can help set up the spine
for sure. Could be very strong with like a tactic package with Helga as well, just like damaging their stuff down to 1, stealing them.
It does massively anti-synergize with his Rot Tosser.
Yes, don't play this Rot Tosser, guys. That sounds like a bad idea. Okay, moving on. Lockdown.
I'll let you handle this one. You have a lot to say about this one.
Okay, so first of all, provision changed from 10 to 13. Great, more lockdown. No, okay. The abilities changed to disable opponent's leader ability for the duration of this round. If your opponent's leader has no charges left or is in cooldown, spawn 2 operatives on your melee row instead. This basically means that you can only disable the opponent's leader for one round. The only round you would really want to do this in round 3. Because let's say you click the ability round 1, then sure they can go leader round 1, they never go leader round 1 anyway. And then they just use the leader in another round, and basically they have a leader, you don't. Okay? So don't use this like early game. You can't really use it in round 2 either, because again, you use your leader. They just say, okay, we won't play our leader round 2, we'll just save it for round 3 instead. So again, you play no leader, they play a leader. And you still only have 13 provision, where they probably have 15, 16, or 17. So the only way this really works is if you go to round 3, you click your ability, you disable the opponent's leader, and none of you have a leader ability, right? If that's the case, you have 3 more provision compared to the old lockdown ability. I think the issue is that will very rarely happen. Like, if you're getting bled and they threaten to 2-0 you, then you kind of just have to say, okay, if I click my ability, I may prevent the 2-0, but then I just don't, like, I played a 0-point leader, right? Of course, you can in round 3, if they already used their leader to play around it, then you can get 2 operatives down, so you get 6-point leader, but a 6-point leader is really, really bad as well, especially for 13 provision. And the final thing issue I have with this card is that if you don't have first say in round 3, then the opponent could just, let's say they have 1 leader charge left on Ceres, they can just open with the Ceres and go 1 leader charge on that. Because you haven't had a chance to click your ability yet to actually disable the opponent's leader.
Yeah.
So my 2 cents on this is that it's like really, really bad change. Really don't like this. If you don't want lockdown in the game, it's fine, but rework it to something else. I think this is a bad way to change it.
Yeah, I tend to think that this is just like they had an idea and it's just like, I don't think it achieves anything, right? This is just this leader ability is now, I mean, what it has achieved is it's made lockdown unplayable, right? Like you just don't play lockdown anymore. Lockdowns, I personally, I think lockdown had a place in the meta, right? Like obviously lately lockdown's been pretty much like the main leader for NG, which isn't necessarily where it should be, but that's mainly due to like nerfs and things and changes to other leaders in Nilfgaard. Nilfgaard doesn't have any good leaders since they took a charge off of formation, right? And the reason they did that was formation was the only leader ability seen any play because all the other leader abilities suck. So instead of making the other leader abilities better, they just made that one worse. And eventually all the leader abilities are so bad that lockdown's the only leader ability you want to play, right? So now what they've done is they've gone, lockdown's been played too much, let's nerf that so it's unplayable. So I really don't know what they're going to, Nilfgaard's leader ability is going to be next season. I guess it's just double cross because double cross has the most P and has some good matchups. But Nilfgaard is in desperate need of leader changes. It needs some good leaders because it's probably got the worst leaders in the entire game right now. Like they're all kind of just really bad.
Yeah, and I personally think we'll see lockdown being played at the competitive level ever again with this ability. If I'm wrong, then feel free to make fun of me, but I just don't see it happening.
Oh, we will, don't worry.
Expected nothing less from you. Then we've got two nerfs here that I'm sure a lot of you guys will be really, really happy about. They're pretty simple. Viper with your Mentor's buff has been reverted, so it's adrenaline 2 again, and Colgrim's adrenaline ability is changed from 2 to 1 again. So, well, not again, that's just a nerf. I mean, I think this is fine. I think I'm not a huge fan of the concept behind the Viper with your Mentor in the first place. Reducing adrenaline to 2 is a massive nerf. Like you were running, like usually we were playing like 4 of them before, double Mentor, location, and what's it called? Vigo, yeah. But now you can't really run 4 of them with this adrenaline requirement. It's just too difficult to play all of them. Colgrim as well. It's the ceiling of the card is strongly reduced, right? You're getting 1 less proc. It can still play for a lot of points, but it's also just more clunk that you have to hold it for that late. I don't think these cards will see much more play. Not sure if you agree with that, or
I think Mentor still will see some sort of play. Colgrim's pretty hard to see play. Like he wasn't seeing that much play because he's kind of clunky to make anyway. Like you have to build your entire deck around him. But at the same time, I'm sort of on the same line as you by the sense of it, that it's not necessarily like, obviously these cards were too powerful, but it's the design of these cards I don't like. Like these nerfs mean that they probably won't see much play, which is great because I don't have to see them anymore. But honestly, it's just the design. I don't like the design aspect. I just don't like the design aspect of any of these new Witcher cards. Like the more offensive ones, honestly, are the Alchemist and Warwick as well. But they, all of these Nilfgaard Witcher cards, I don't like the design of. Hopefully, they will come and do something about that eventually. But right now, I think this is kind of like a band-aid, right? We're not going to see these cards see much play. So.
I agree. Mentors could see play maybe sometimes in some decks, but maybe just as a one-off or something like that.
Yeah.
Then Fall Siri is getting a rework as well. Now it's going to be 4 power, 6 provision, and you can now boost all agents. We had a short discussion about this before we started the video as well, and I think it's okay-ish, but there's not that many agents you can buff, and like you can have some synergy going with Emir, but it's kind of greedy because it doesn't really, if your Emir sticks, then this card will be good, and if it gets answered, then this card is kind of bad as well. You have a few of them from Fangs and Master of Disguise and Breathens, but I'm not sure if there's enough agents for this card to be strong.
And there's a few other things to note about this card. It did get the Aristocrat tag, which is somewhat nice. But the other issue that this card has is that it's 6p, right? 6p is a provision that you just don't really want to, like. You've got to have some pretty busted cards to be played at 6 and 7p, right? Look at Soul in Syndicate, look at Mentors in Nilfgaard. Like they have to be really, really strong cards. Like even Anna in NR doesn't see play outside of Shield War, right? Even though she's like really strong, because like they need to be really, really strong to see play at those provision cards.
And the funny thing is that even if you have a bunch of agents, this card will probably still play for less than a Viper with your Mentor. So probably better off just throwing a Mentor into the deck and then hope for the best. One thing to note that I think we've got to mention is that both the 2 new Nilfgaard cards are aristocrats. Did we mention that? I don't think we did.
I did mention that.
Okay.
You were like, yeah.
Okay.
Don't worry, chat. Saber's getting old.
I sure am. Then we've got a rework to this card, Cadaverin, or something like that.
Yes. I'm glad you tried to say it, not me.
The card was dead. You never saw. I don't think I've ever really seen it played before in a competitive level. Now what it does is it poisons an enemy unit and spawns a base copy of it. So it's if you compare it to a Fang, you're still poisoning something. But instead of getting the 4-point body from the Fang, you're now getting the body that you're poisoning, but obviously without the boost. So if you use it on Ergen, I guess it's actually pretty bad because you don't get the armor and it dies.
That's pretty funny because I did the exact same thing when I was talking to Info about this. I was like, oh, you can use it on Ergen. It dies. Yeah, that seems terrible.
Yeah, so like I guess it's good on engines, like if you want to use it to like kill and Keldar.
Going to be mainly used on either engines or defenders, right?
Yeah, so it's like I guess you could just consider it as like maybe you shouldn't think about it as a poison card, but more as a hey, let's just grab one of the opponent's like engines cards. Like imagine playing this card and Imposter in the same turn, like you're like doubling down on his engine while you're locking his. So like that could be pretty strong.
I mean, kinda.
Like they play Kilda, you play Calderin and Imposter. Come in.
It's kind of just doo-doo at that point, though, right?
I guess. And doo-doo is not very good.
No. So I think you have to consider the poison, otherwise this card is absolutely trash.
Yeah, but okay. So, but I guess it's just becomes more of a value poison, and then I'm not sure how good this card is. Like,
I could see it seeing some experimentation, and then people realizing that this card's just doo-doo, and that was a pun, guys. And then you can just.
I think at 9p it's a little bit expensive. Like it was 7 before, maybe 7 was actually fine to keep it at that if you wanted to see play. It is a tactic which like has some synergy.
It's not. Oh yeah, it is.
They gave it.
They changed it to a special, and yeah. So I guess it has some synergy in that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Syndicate. Syndicate is getting a bunch of buffs. I'm really happy about that. I really tried to make Syndicate work this season, but I didn't really do particularly well. So I think with these new buffs, it will actually be more playable. But let's take them one by one. First up, we got a new card called Cleaver. 1 power, 2 armor, 11 provision. And you can spawn and play a Shakedown. Shakedown is a card that gives you 3 coins and boosts the unit by 3. The Intimidate tag on Cleaver will increase by 1 for each adjacent crown splitter you have. So I'm not sure how easy it is to get a lot of crown splitters. Like there's probably some cost to playing a bunch of them. But if you can get like a lot of crown splitters in your deck together with this, then it is pretty strong that like because you trigger the Intimidators like together with the deployability. So not only do you play a Shakedown, it plays for 6 points. You also get an additional 3 points from the Intimidate, so that makes it a 10 to 11 on deploy, I believe. Plus, it's a kind of a 3-point a turn engine if you play crime cards and you have crown splitters. So there's a lot of ifs in this card, but.
And then it's also more than a 1-to-1 spender, right? It's like a 4 to 5. It's a 5 to 4 spender, so it's like slightly better than your average spender.
Yeah, that's probably the thing I like about the most, that you can actually like you don't have profit, which is sometimes awkward because of Redinian.
Does its Intimidate go up by 1 only when it's played next to Crown Splitters on deploy, or does it go up when you have Crown Splitters adjacent to it? So, like, if you play them afterwards, does it Intimidate go up?
Yeah, so I believe that it's like every turn it just checks how many adjacent Crown Splitters do you have. So, like, it's always a maximum.
So, like, you probably play it with like Intimidate 1 or 2, right? And then you just spawn the Cleaver's Muscle on that row.
Right. So that's actually a good point, right? So you have Cleaver's Muscle is I actually completely missed that synergy. So you can spawn the Cleaver's Muscle to get more crown splitter value, which is interesting for sure.
And it's like hard to kill a Cleaver's Muscle, right? So it keeps the Intimidate.
Yeah. That's actually really interesting. You can only spawn them to run like one side of it, right? Because spawn will always go to the right.
You can also go like maybe you play Justice before you play Cleaver, and then you get it down, and then
it's not a sort of card you throw into any deck randomly. You need to have like some.
No, it's a highly synergistic card.
Yeah, but potentially very strong, I think. And it doesn't die very easily, even though it only got 1 power, because you got the armor and you trigger the Intimidate right away, and you can even use the Shakedown
if you want.
Yeah.
So you can get it to pretty much any strength you want on deploy.
Exactly. Then we got Horse on Junior, 5 power, 10 provision. Damage a boosted enemy unit by 6, and you gain 1 coin for every point of excess damage dealt, which technically makes it an 11 for 10 with huge removal. If you are Devotion, you get Insanity, which means that you can spend coins without having them. Well, I guess you damage yourself instead of spending coins. And your ability is to destroy an enemy unit with 3 less power for the cost of 3 coins. Yep. So the card is, I think, having an 11 for 10 that can deal 6 damage very strong. Obviously, it is restricted to boosted units only. But that is a good ability. That's a strong card. The Fee ability is not that amazing. People rarely play units at around 3 strength, so
it works very well against the new Alp, right, for monsters.
Yeah, countering monsters, vampires.
And you can kill a lava. It kills a lava, right, because it doesn't actually deal 3 damage. So, it's like half a counter to a lava. The lava gets trades up by 1 body.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could spend 6 coins and kill both lavas, right?
True. Actually, so good.
I think the card is solid, but not so much because of the spending option. It is nice to be able to spend coins. Because I think you should just look at this card as like a value removal card that has the option to sometimes spend to get rid of some coins.
Yeah, I think the fee ability is like not super impactful, but it'll have some niche scenarios, and the fact that you're not going tall with your spend, right? Like it's actually taking points away from your opponent's side of the board rather than giving yourself points is something that Syndicate kind of needs from its spending abilities. It doesn't have many of those.
Yeah. All right. Then we got Line Pockets, getting a small buff, getting 1 extra charge, meaning that it's always worth 6 coins. But obviously, every time you play a crime card, you get 1 additional coin.
One, right?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think the main reason this leader might be better now is not because of this change, why that definitely helps, but also because a lot of the crimes are getting buffs. So, next card we have here is Shakedown. Shakedown is now 4 operation instead of 5 operation. And I think you mentioned before, Chess, but like the difference between a 5 operation and a 4 operation card is massive.
Yeah.
So now this card displays 6 for 4 crime synergy. Sorry. I think this is like a good card now.
Yeah, certainly it's going to see play for sure. A lot of play.
Yeah. Then Tax Collector is getting a small buff as well. Actually, pretty major buff, but it's just like 1 provision buff.
I think Tax Collector is like a huge. Like this card is now a 4 for 4 +1 turn engine, right? Which is like better than Magni and stuff, right? Because they're 3.
Yeah.
So it's like just better than all the other ones. Obviously, it doesn't boost itself, so it's like dies to 4 removal. But I mean, you just jam 2 of these in every Syndicate deck now. I think it's just.
At least it looks very decent, right? For 4p, like it's hard to come up with a reason not to run it. 5 for 4 floor, skin coin.
I mean, I guess the reason not to run it is Syndicate already has a lot of good 4ps, right? Like we were saying before, that is one thing Syndicate has always had quite good at. It's like 4ps are pretty strong.
So hopefully you can polarize the decks a bit more with the new cards you've gotten. Because I agree, like if you're on Poison Package and some spenders, there's not much room for the Tax Collectors.
Exactly, yeah.
But I think the card itself is decent. Horseman's Freak Show, provision change from 8 to 7. So this is a pretty controversial card, I think. Do you think this 1 provision buff is enough to make it see play again?
No.
I think it might, but maybe only in like these bounty decks.
I think the provision change means this card will see more play. However, I think the people playing it will be incorrect for playing it.
Yeah, okay, that's a fair point. I think I agree. It's still a little bit too expensive. Like maybe in some metas, this card could be very, very strong. But as a general card, still 6 for 7.
You get 6p, right? And then it's like super like auto include, and then they actually have a spender, which is nice.
So maybe 7 is like maybe it's just good enough. But I fear
I'll put it at 6 because Syndicate sucks and they need it at 6.
At 6 it would be really broken, right? But obviously they could use that.
What do you mean? It would be a 6 for 6.
That could just pew 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 the entire board.
Like it would. I mean, Syndicate could really do with this being a 6, right? And then it would actually be. That'd be so good for Syndicate.
Yeah. Then we've got a few other buffs here. Siggy first, getting a provision change from 10 to 12 to 11. This card was already pretty solid before.
Yeah, the problem Siggy has, right, is there's a few problems. One, it forces you to put cards in your deck that you wouldn't necessarily want to, but that's not so bad because normally you get like 4 and then it's just a 5th tag that you need to like find, right? The second problem is you go straight, like you have to have 0 coins, right? So you need to play him at the start of a round generally, which again isn't necessarily a big issue, but it can be awkward if you only have profit spenders in hand, or like a fill-up to get it to like spend, and then you can't play anything else with profit until you've played that fill-up or you lose coins, which is a little awkward. And the other one is the fact that Passy is the other top end card and you can only really play one of them. They were really the issues, but a buff to Siggy, like Siggy itself wasn't a bad card already. It just had some things holding it back a little. The +1 buff just means like maybe now you can fit it in with Passy as well at the same time, or maybe it's better than Passy now. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean it would be interesting to run both of them because of the polarization issues we talked about. So So potentially very strong. The next one here, Ludovicius Brunnenbaum, is looking absolutely insane. Before I was trying to play this card this patch, and I will agree it was a little bit underwhelming. Like, you gain 6 coins, which is like 11 for 7, but it really never stuck, so you kind of had to pay the tribute. But with this new change, you're gaining 9 coins instead of 6. So if you just for a second imagine this card sticking to the board, right? They can't remove it. Then it's basically the same card as Siggy, just 1 more base and 4 less provision, right?
It doesn't have Intimidate.
It doesn't have Intimidate, that's true.
But it also doesn't force you to run random nonsense in your deck.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously that will rarely happen, but you can pay the tribute, which is now going to be 4 if you're playing 5. Yeah, sorry. I mean, so if you're playing it in the tribute deck of the books, it's going to be 4. So in that deck you'll play 4 coins to get a full bank. So you're kind of gaining 5 coins, which will make it a 10 for 7. Obviously, as we talked about, it's an awkward provision, but I think this buff will actually make it see quite some play.
Not only is it 10 for 7, it also makes running boat much easier, right?
Yeah.
Like, boat just comes flying out, which is huge. It also means like you could potentially run like a soul or whatever. Now, I'm not sure if you would, but I mean, maybe being able to run soul is pretty nice.
And I guess you could actually, if you run Tiger's Eye, you could open this on blue coin. Just go Tiger's Eye, play this, full bank.
Get some wings,
and then Soul next.
Soul and
that actually sounds really nice. Yeah, I think this is one of the biggest buffs you're going to get when we are seeing this patch.
This is a huge buff for sure. This card's like gone from being like not even seeing niche play to probably close to auto include for a lot of Syndicate decks.
Yeah, I agree. Then Igor's getting a small buff here, 10 train provision. Sure, seems fine. Do you have anything to add to that?
I don't think I've ever played this card because I didn't play the Townsfolk Igor thing, but when Infant saw this, he was like, oh, Townsfolk Igor can be played again. I have no idea if that's true or not, but he seemed quite excited by it. So
yeah, sure. The Blacksmith getting a profit buff. So it's now getting 2 coins. It's now playing as a 6 for 5, I believe.
Yeah, 6 for 5. Like,
it's still not strong enough in my opinion. But
I think what they should have done to this card, right, is change its profit to 2 and make it 4p.
Yeah, that would be good.
Because then you could actually start cutting those crappy spenders, right, at 4p.
Yeah.
Like, bye-bye, Urchin, hello, Cohurst, Blacksmith.
Yeah, and throw a blind attack on it as well, right? Then we're good to go.
I actually don't think you need, like, especially if you're playing off the books, right? You actually have so many blind eyes in that deck. Like, you don't need the Urchins. The only reason you need the Urchins is you need spenders, right? You have too many coins. So,
true.
Like, Urchin is just such a bad card you're forced to play because of its ability, right? And its time.
I agree. I think this is like a step in the right direction, but I don't think this card is still not going to be good enough.
Not going to see play.
Yeah. Then we got another card that's probably not going to see play. Oxenford Naturalist.
5 for 5 becomes a 4 for 5. A 5 for 4. It's so broken.
Yeah, so 5 for 4. It is like a cheap spender, but like, and it doesn't have to go troll. But I mean, yeah, it doesn't have the blind eye attack. It kind of just doesn't really do much.
Bad Coerce Blacksmith, right?
It's a bad Blacksmith, it's a bad Urchin. It's just, sure, it's fine they're buffing it, but like, that's just not going to be enough, I don't think. Because I don't think there's any vitality synergy in Syndicate, unless I'm mistaken. The Tunnel Drill is a little bit more interesting, because now you can you only have to pay 2 coins and potential deal 3 damage. Now, dealing 3 damage is not going to be easy, but if you combine this with Cleaver, there could be some very interesting synergies here. So, like, you play Cleaver, you spawn a bunch of Ground Spillers, and then you play this Tunnel Roll in between, and then you're paying 2 coins to deal 3 damage each turn. Well, like, as far as many coins as you have.
Yep.
That could be pretty powerful. Obviously, it's only playing for 6 for 6, so, like, you really need to go through, you need to have full coins. But if you have full coins, you get the Cleaver through. I could see this being an absolute machine gun.
Yeah, like, so there's a few issues with this. 1, your Cleaver needs to stick. 2, you need to have the coins. 3, it's 6p.
So your Cleaver doesn't really need to stick, right? You could, in theory, you could play Cleaver just press the V button two or three times, like then you have a bunch of muscles on the board.
I don't think you could press it 3 times, as you'd need 12 coins for that.
I mean, you have lead ability, right, to potentially spend. But I mean, probably just spending with it twice, maybe.
Yeah.
I agree, and also like the issue is that quite often the opponent opens with an engine, you want to be fast to respond, right? So this is where this gets a little bit awkward. So I'm not sure, but I mean, I think it's
what this card will be very good against is like elves and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, it's
because you would just be able to machine gun them elves down.
That would be pretty cool.
Full
bang, full leader, just pew 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 pew.
Yeah, and then because you don't need to kill them straight away, right? They're not engines you need to answer, so you can do that quite late in a round.
Yeah. Then Rico is getting actually quite an interesting change here. So previously it was just setting the power to equal to the power of the latest unit the opponents played, the base power. But now it's their actual power, the current power. What this means is that, let's say the opponent plays Austral, and you play this card, now you play a 14-point Rico rather than a 1-point Rico. That's already a pretty big improvement. But it could also be situations like the opponent's playing a Jackal, the opponent buffs the Jackal for 30 points, and then you play Rico for 30 points. Right? Obviously, they if they play another unit in between, it won't work. But I think this card, I mean, it probably won't be run either, like still, but I think it's definitely a lot better now. Some really cool interactions.
Yeah, I think so. This card was completely. I don't think I've ever seen this card played. Now I will probably see it played within the first week of the patch, which is cool because I'll see a new card being played. I doubt I'll see it played much after the first week of the patch because it's still probably.
I think. Sorry, I think it'll be very strong against Kelly, right? Because they play so few units, and the units they play they buff. So
yeah, I mean, if you want to in a tournament, I guess you could play this
potentially. But on ladder, probably not.
Yeah.
Dib and Punter, similar to Shakedown, getting a 1 operation buff. I think this card is better than Shakedown generally. Damage is usually better than Boost. So really strong card with operation, I think.
Dip and the Punter was played quite a lot when it first came around because 3 damage was relevant in that meta. 3 damage in this meta isn't particularly relevant, but like you said, damage is still better than Boost most of the time. So yeah, I could see this card. This card will probably see play as well, like a 6/4 that deals 3 damage, gives you some coins. It's like non-interactive. The fact that it's non-interactive is huge, right? Whereas Shakedown is actually interactive, right? You have to have something on the board already.
This card could be, sorry for interrupting, this card could be interesting with Horson as well, that you deal 3 damage, gain 3 coins, so you set up a kill target for Horson, and then you gain the coins to spend with the Horson, so you can kind of kill a 6-point unit together with those 2 cards. Obviously depending on the Horson sticking, but yeah.
For sure. Yep.
Okay. Stolen Mutagen. This card got a buff. I still think it's absolutely garbage. So before we had to have 3 Salamander units, now we have to have 2 to get the profit. Honestly, you should just give the profit 3 to be standard on this card. The options from it are, well, I mean, that would probably be maybe too strong, but right now it's getting 2 Salamander units to stick is not that easy, and yeah, if you only deal 4 damage, it's just not very good.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played this card myself yet, and I probably won't play this card next season either.
No. If you could make it more consistent, maybe with a different tag or with an even easier condition, then maybe. I think it's still just too clunky. Yep. Baker getting a buff as well. Now it starts as a 6/4, because you're getting 3 coins, and if you get bonded, you're gaining 5 coins from the second one. So I still think the card is a little bit weak, but I mean, okay, 6/4, it's okay. It's a blind eye. Maybe
I think the card's pretty. The card's fine. Now it's actually pretty good, especially so 6/4, and then the second one plays as an 8/4.
Yeah.
Which are both okay, but the problem again is, well, Syndicate, it even more now is the Syndicate has just so many good 4Ps, right? They don't need more 4Ps. I think it's kind of I
think I'll always run Dip and Punter with this card.
You're right.
But maybe in some situations.
If another faction had a card that played for this much value, you'd probably play it in the 4P, but Syndicate's the one faction that actually has very tight 4Ps, right? Like they have a lot of things they have to run in those 4P spenders and poisons, and now they also have these really good crime cards that they want to run.
Yeah.
So baggage is probably one to play.
Okay. Then we got a buff to Blindheim. And yeah, it's just still kind of bad, right? King of Beggars maybe, but like how often do units actually get damage that you can get heal value? Yeah. Then we got the last change of the patch to the brothers, the Blindheim brothers. So the first Blindheim brother is losing the adrenaline effect, which means that it's just saying whenever a unit is poisoned, gain 2 coins. So like basically, it will just always work, right? It will just always work. It's not like it only works on allied later on.
Yeah. So it's a buff.
It's a buff, yeah. And now, I mean, that could maybe be more decent. It's still like kind of awkward mid-range card, but I mean, 7 for 7 with like gaining maybe a few coins doesn't sound bad. Then you got Gillard. Gillard Blindheim. And this is probably a bigger buff, I think, because now this card is getting adrenaline, but you're not having a cooldown when you don't have adrenaline. So for the first 4 turns of the round, you can spend as many coins as you want with this. But obviously, you can't really boost the same unit twice because then you kill it with the poison. But early in the round, if you somehow manage to get a lot of units on the board, this could be nice to just get some coins.
Out of curiosity, how does this work with Veil? Does it like just not boost it by 2?
Oh, I think you'll just boost it. Yeah, I think it'll still boost it. So if you have a veiled unit somehow, then you will just be able to boost 2-to-1 ratio, I believe.
Okay. Like I have no idea because I don't know if it gives it poison. Like I don't know how.
I guess if you could get like a veiled unit on the board and then go for the two brothers after each other, you would actually be able to boost into infinity, right? Because the first brothers is gain 2 coins, the other one is just
use Crystal Skull, right? So I guess it doesn't work on veiled.
I think I would need to test that actually.
But you just going Crystal Skull, bam bam.
But it doesn't it just said poison allied unit and boosted by. I don't know. That's actually pretty interesting.
I don't think you can actually poison a veiled unit, right?
Maybe that's the issue. Okay, we will have to get back on that.
I don't think you can.
But that sounds like a pretty dumb combo, just boosting a card to like 5,000 points and be like, oh, did you have a heat wave? Otherwise, in a fun game.
Uneven, right? Well, no, you just went uneven.
I mean, I guess you could fan some veiled units in round 3 as well, somehow.
You run the
the 4P card, right? That gives away.
Yeah, 4P, yeah. Fortune teller.
But yeah, that was all the changes. Just to wrap up here, just like, what's your like overall impression of the patch? Like, how would you rate it on a scale from 1 to 10?
I'm pretty happy with this in terms of like it's one of the better ones I've seen lately. I'd probably give it like an 8, maybe. There's obviously some things I would have liked to have seen changed. Obviously, would like to have seen some more changes in Nilfgaard to some of the problematic cards and maybe give them a leader ability. But like, I'm really happy with their top end cards. Like those cards look really nice, and I'm looking forward to trying them out. Monsters is interesting because I like their cards, but they're pushing an archetype that I just don't think works right now. One thing I will say is that we kind of a card that they could really do with is, the Fleder now gets vitality for bleeding for whatever like number of bleeding a unit has. Well, if they had a high-end gold card that gets boosted for the number of bleeding, right? So kind of similar to Oriana, but it's actually, instead of the number of units that are bleeding, the amount of bleeding it boosts itself. Like that could be a second really high-powered engine that they could have that might help them. Could be pretty cool.
CDPR should probably hire you with all the good ideas you have.
Yeah. I mean, my door's always open to CDPR. But yeah, overall, I think it's a pretty cool patch. Syndicate got some nice buffs, so hopefully they won't be completely trashed this season. I don't think they're going to be I don't think they're going to be tier 1 all of a sudden, but they're going to be more competitive for sure. Northern Realms is going to be a funny one to see because both of their cards are interesting with potential, but I don't think they're quite going to be the ones. And then Dwarfs, I guess, is one that could see play. Like Dwarfs is now a completely viable option, I would imagine. Like they got a really strong top end card. Depends on the rest of it. But like, yeah, overall I'm pretty happy with the patch. What about you?
Yeah, I think I would also give it like 8, maybe even a 9. Like, we're getting 12 new cards, a bunch of balance changes. Most of them I definitely agree with the direction. A few of them I would have done differently. But yeah, all really happy about it. Please let us know what you think about this patch. Like, do you agree with the changes? Is there anything that you think are missing that should be added? And what do you think is going to be the strongest deck going forward? So yeah.
Strongest deck next season. Do you want to guess? Do you want to have a prediction before we log off?
Maybe we should leave that to chat, and then we will come back in a few days and look smart.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much for watching, guys. See you in the next one.
See ya.